Welcome to the Northern Business Podcast. Each week we talk to people active in business and the economy about the issues driving growth in the north of England. We're sponsored by Virtue Motors, one of the UK's largest motor retailers. You can check out its website at virtuemotors.com. I'm Graham Robb. I own Recognition PR. We help scores of businesses promote their products and services. Some are featured in this podcast. Make sure you don't miss an episode by subscribing on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Both our guests today are down the line. We've got John Wiles, who's Managing Director at Simply Asset Finance, and Andrew Lane, Managing Director at Union Industries, the UK's leading manufacturer of bespoke industrial doors. You see them when you go through warehouses. They go up and down as the forklift truck goes through. Very interesting product, and they've done great success with it. My colleague Josh Mason will later speak to Dr. David Moore, who's the CEO at the British Constructional Steelwork Association, and Chris Lister, who's the commercial manager at Farrat. Right, gentlemen, welcome to the programme. First of all, John, Simply Asset Finance, it sounds simple. You finance assets. How's business? You're based in Liverpool, aren't you?
We are, yes. We've got a regional presence right across the UK, but we opened up an office in Liverpool last year. And we are here to support local businesses. As you said, the clue is in the title. We try to take asset finance out there to SMEs, using industry experts sitting in front of customers and explain how easy this product is and how we can help your business. What's
the advantage of doing it your way compared to going to the bank?
The main advantage from us, we are a non-bank lender. Is traditionally banks will look at a balance sheet, and a balance sheet is a snapshot of how the company performed 10, 12, 14 months ago, whenever it was produced. We tend to sit down in front of a customer, we talk to them, we ask them the reason why they're purchasing the equipment, and we take a forward view as to the owner of the business will understand what the purchase is for. And we try and assist in that way. So we look at assets slightly differently, and we look at assets mainly that we understand, which is hard assets in construction, manufacturing, transport sectors.
And energy, because you're making a point at the moment about a specific scheme. It's the EBDS scheme. Remind us what the scheme is and about the way in which you're operating within it.
So this is the energy bill discount scheme, and we commissioned a piece of research that shows just over half, 50%, 57% of SMEs in the north aren't aware that this scheme is available to help subsidise their energy bills, and the scheme is actually due to close at the end of March. So we're keen to get our message out to our customers, and to all SMEs in the north that they need to explore this as an option, because what we have seen through our research as well is the average cost of energy has risen by 22% over the last 12 months. And on average, an SME is paying out about £64,000 per year on fuel and energy bills. So any assistance that's out there from the government is very welcome.
Well, I think that's absolutely right. Let's look at this research you've done, though, because we scratch the surface with that statistic about the energy scheme. But there's some other statistics. I'll put some on the screen for people watching, people listening. Let's go through them. 22% of SMEs have actually postponed significant business investments due to increased energy costs. So that's quantifying the actual problem, and I can imagine that's quite significant. That's 1 in 7. You've also got 14% of SMEs in the Northwest said they have to pause their business growth because of an extended period of time. And then you've also got 24% of SMEs in the Northwest said they were unable to buy a new piece of equipment or technology. And some have even had to downsize. 16% of SMEs in the Northwest have had to downsize. And only 18% of SMEs have seen no impact. That's quite a range of information.
It is. And what we're finding is that speculative purchases, which is what our economy is great at, where a customer would buy an extra truck because they think they will be able to get work for it. That has slowed down. And what we're seeing now is just replenishment of existing assets and existing fleet, keeping us going forward. And it stops for a couple of reasons. One is the fact that some SMEs don't actually understand what's available, as you've seen from the stats out there in the way of asset finance and how it works. They still think it's a mystical dark art, but it's not. It's a great tool, and it's out there to benefit all customers. And what not many people know is that the UK is actually the third largest asset finance market in the world. So it's a significant portion of business growth. And whilst there are a lot of negative thoughts and press out there, the other piece of research shows that 80% of SMEs are actually optimistic about the future. We've been through a couple of issues with things that have happened economically over the past few years, as we're all aware. But we're now getting to a stage where people are hopeful of what's to come over the next few years.
Well, I'm glad you've said that, John, because you're absolutely right. This week, I've had the deputy business editor of a national newspaper in my car, and I've toured him around the northeast. And he's been used to, I won't name names and everything, but he's been used to writing news stories from his desk in London. And when he got out into the northeast, he saw businesses, I introduced him to businesses that were in their own ecosystem pretty confident and buoyant. And I just think sometimes some of the mood music is being affected by people who are commentators, not participants, but they don't really talk to the participants sufficiently.
Absolutely. The stress test is everyone reads what's on the front pages of the newspapers. But the actuality is as I said, we have a lot of resilient SMEs out there who know that they need to take their business forward, and they need to take the blows as it comes and find a way of working through. And that's what we're seeing, and that's what our growth is predicated on, is going out there and helping these SMEs to find alternatives, to find a way to grow despite what's happening externally.
And John, the government introduced this year full deductions for capital expenditure for businesses. If you spend £100 on a computer or £10,000 on a solar panel system, you can deduct it all against your tax. Has that made any difference? Are you growing as a business? Because if you're growing and you're lending more, something's going right.
It does make a difference, because we see a noticeable spike towards the end of March as people take full use of these schemes. If it's a case where you were 75-80% sure that you were going to invest, this is the type of scheme that will get a customer over the line and add value to them. But if you're 50-50, it's not really going to factor into your decision-making process. So it is helping some, but it's not giving full benefit to everybody that's out there.
And my second question, are you growing? Are you lending more this time than this time last year?
We are growing. We've placed in the FTSE top 1,000 growing companies in Europe for the past 2 years on the row. And last year we were the fastest growing financial institution as well. So yes, we are growing because our message is getting out there, our reach is getting out there, and specifically in the northwest, the northeast is a very good hub for our customer base.
We're going to bring Andrew in now. Let's see if we can bring him in. Andrew, what do you have to say about what you've just heard from John? I think if a money man's making money, that's pretty good indication that there's something going right.
Absolutely. I think there is a lot going right. And you will recall we had the BBC here, and Faisal Islam did a piece on union post-COVID it was. And we gave him lots of positive news because that's what we had. And the BBC saw fit to remove that commentary and overdub it with somebody from the BBC saying how difficult and bad things were. And actually, that's what's wrong with the economy. The major media players as John has said, are just talking the country down. And our experience is not negative. Our experience is very positive. There are businesses out there that are growing, that are investing, that are doing well, despite this media environment that wants you to be poor.
Okay, well, let's just quantify it a bit. You make these doors for industry that you see on the big warehouses, and you also maintain them and so on. So, what's the pipeline like for you?
Well, as we stand today, the honest picture, excuse me, is that we have got a larger order book than we've had in 5 years. So we are somewhat concerned that the lead time for our products is reaching out too far, and we're looking to expand yet further our capacity to be able to deliver that level of customer service that we're known for.
Let's bring John back in. There's one question I wanted to ask you, John, and I've just heard that testimony from Andrew, and I've heard what you've got to say about the finance and everything like that. Now, the Bank of England and the government want to keep a lid on inflation. You've heard Andrew there saying he's got pent-up demand, I think I would qualify as what you're saying. You've got people who are borrowing money, and we had the latest wage figures, which show wage growth still more than inflation. It's a tale of two different and conflicting bits of economics. If the Bank of England wants to get inflation down, and the government and people in business like us here want to do well, sometimes the balance isn't reached and inflation will go up.
Correct. And obviously that's a problem for the Bank of England.
It's a problem for you though, because you're setting your interest rates on assets that you're loaning on. So where are you setting your interest rates at the moment, John?
Our interest rates are obviously linked to the Bank of England base rate. But where we sit, we work on a fixed rate through the life. So the customer, when he's buying the asset, we're very clear with the monthly payment. They factor that into their cash flow to make sure it's affordable in the current business model, and it doesn't change. It won't go up, so it's not volatile from that.
Excellent. Okay, thank you, John. Let's go back to Andrew. Andrew, what about investment on your part? We've heard about pipeline. Are you looking at automation? Are you looking at new jobs? Are you looking at new pieces of equipment? What kind of investment plans has the business got?
Well, our investment plan really follows the business plan. And one thing that events of the last few years have told us is that long-range business plans are really difficult because you don't know what's around the corner. So we haven't financed anything in, 10 years since we've been employee-owned, because we set off with the intention of having cash reserves that allowed us a flexibility so that speculative investment, we can make that. And we've done speculative investments in manufacturing machinery, but more lately it's been in R&D and in generating new sales techniques. That all of this consumes cash without an immediate return. So we've been able to do that, and we will continue to do it, because you don't get ahead by standing still, and that's very much part of our business thinking.
Right. Now, I want to ask you a little bit, I don't want to leave that point entirely, but I want to ask you a little bit about the general economy, Andrew, and also John. The government we've seen hasn't been borrowing as much as was predicted. And so you're getting a lot of the commentators saying, well, it can afford to cut tax. And there's talk that there could be between 8 and even 20 billion pounds worth of money that could be cut off tax bills. And if that happened in March, it would go almost immediately into the economy. What is your point of view on that proposition and how it would affect business? John first.
I think it would be useful, especially in the current climate. It would allow companies to reinvest back into the business to allow for sustainable growth over the next few years.
And Andrew?
I think there's been so much in terms of tax rises in recent times that it's almost, where do you start? And the one obviously, and I'd say this because I'm a business person, I want to see the corporation tax start getting back to where it was, because that feeds so many different things. And if businesses are going to go for full term or for more employment and more investment in the community and in the country, then we need to have some of those taxes released to enable us to do that very thing.
Okay. Well, look, it's clear I'm talking to two people who have got a positive attitude for both their businesses and the economy. And John's more positive than even that, because he's providing a feedstock of money to invest, and he's checking it off first. He's checking it twice, and obviously that's a really good thing. John, thank you for joining us. Simply Asset Finance, based in Liverpool. Andrew, Union Industries, based in Leeds. Great to talk to you both, and thank you for joining us on the Northern Business Podcast. Now, over to my colleague Josh Mason. Josh has been speaking to Dr. David Moore, who's the CEO of the British Constructional Steelwork Association, and Chris Lister, Commercial Manager at Farrat.
My name's David Moore. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for the British Constructional Steelwork Association, which looks after the steelwork contractors. Today, for the first time, we've actually launched what we call a mini manifesto. We have 5 different asks of government, and we've been to the House of Lords, talking to ministers and talking to Lords and MPs about our 5 asks of government. These 5 asks are: we'd like them to end cash retentions now and replace it with project bank accounts as soon as possible. We'd like them to actually put British business first when it comes to public projects. We'd also like them to change the apprentice system so it's more focused on the skills and experience that our people need in the fabrication community. We'd also like them to think about the funding systems that actually small and medium-sized enterprises need to expand their business, to expand their equipment. And finally, we actually had British Steel talking about decarbonisation and the funding that they require to actually be more competitive in the market.
And what will the impacts of those changes mean for the steelwork sector, but also for the British economy more widely?
Well, the steelwork sector will actually make us far more competitive. It will actually make us able to put more GP back into the actual government's coffers, etc. It will actually build a better and actually more effective constructional steelwork community.
What do you hope that the MPs and peers who were present today are going to take away?
I hope they're actually going to take away the actual 5 asks we've been putting on the table and put them in their manifestos for the forthcoming election, and actually put them in place to make sure that they are actioned in the next year or two.
My name is Chris Lister. I am the Northern Chairman of the BCSA and Commercial Manager for Farrat Structural Thermal Brakes. So we've been involved in the launch of the mini manifesto for the BCSA, looking at our questions and our asks for government.
What are you particularly looking for in the upcoming election manifesto?
I think the key one for us is the introduction or the use of the apprenticeship levy to its fullest. We have a lot of apprentices at our works. We're very keen to make sure that they come through. We're very keen to make sure that they have the right training at the level required to be part of the industry. And that for me was certainly a personal takeaway as one of the things I wanted to see happen.
Can you just flesh out a bit what the current challenges around apprenticeships?
I think currently there is a perception that apprenticeships are not as valuable as a university education. And as such, people are discouraged from coming into the industries such as structural steel fabrication. And so therefore we want to see that made more clear that it is a positive and worthwhile opportunity to go into that steel industry.
And the solution to that for you would be?
I think the solution would be to have the funding for level 2 apprenticeships made more available, to be higher, and to be on a par with level 3 apprenticeships.
And what role do you think the steelwork construction sector plays particularly in the North and in your patch? How significant?
I think there was a very the membership of BCSA is predominantly in the north of England. We see an awful lot of work going on in London, but I think the work that's likely to happen in the wake of HS2 and the Crossrail in Manchester would be a very good shot in the arm for the steel fabrication industry in the north.
Thanks, Josh. And if you'd like to join us as a guest on Northern Business Podcast, feel free to get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. Also, thanks to our podcast producer, Harry Sinclair, and technical operator, Robin Campbell. Join us next time for Northern Business Podcast. Never miss an episode. Like, rate, and subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.